Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey friends, welcome into the podcast. This is episode 136, and I've got such a special episode for you here and a really, really great interview with one of my newer web design students who is early in her journey, but has done such a great job with building her business and sticking with it and doing a really good job at creating beautiful websites and starting to get clients in her first year. I wanted to have her on to share what she's learned in this first year of her journey. This is Shannon Morris, and what's extra interesting about her is that she pivoted from a completely different career. She was a former school teacher and wanted to do more traveling and wanted to work remotely and when and where she wanted. And you'll hear in this interview, she was doing some traveling at one point and teaching online as a school teacher. And then she found out that a lot of people traveling and kind of having a more nomadic style life were in web development. So it piqued her interest to start web design. As you'll hear, she kind of shares about how she came about my resources. And she, in this interview, dives in to her entire journey on how she started her business, how she learned web design. And I think more importantly, we get into not only the highs that she's had and the confidence boosters that she's experienced, but also the low points, because we all go through highs and lows, particularly that first year of starting our business. But as you're going to hear, Shannon did an incredible job at sticking with it and persevering through some of those tough points. She shares how she does that in this episode. And more important than any of this, when Shannon started her web design business, she talks about this later on in the interview, but she realized she needed to, if she was going to fast track her journey and not take years and years and years to learn everything, she wanted to learn from somebody who had already done it. And that's how she came across me. And Shannon joined my web design course bundle, which is all of my web design courses wrapped up into basically one little mini academy. And that is the quickest and most effective way to fast track your journey to becoming a well-rounded web designer, just like Shannon. It's going to teach you design. It's going to teach you basics of coding. It's going to teach you the business aspect of things, how to build your maintenance plan. Shannon decided that she wanted to go through that. And as you'll hear in this interview, not only did she learn how to do all that, but she actually implemented it, which was so cool for me to see and hear. So if that's you and you want to learn web design and you're ready to start your own business, join my web design course bundle today. It again will teach you how to become a well-rounded web designer, just like Shannon, so you can start your business and grow it and go it to the next level. Especially for those of you who are coming from a different career path and you're just terrified to get into web design. So can't wait for you to hear this one. Shannon was so great, so transparent in sharing her first year of her journey. And I did want to mention before we dive in, it was funny. After we stopped recording, she was like, I should have mentioned this when we were live, but she said, I took some other courses after I took yours as well, just to get some other perspective. And she was like, another course I took didn't even compare to your bundle and your business course because it was surfacey. It didn't really teach me that much, didn't empower me. She said, with your checklists and everything that you provide and the practical lessons, it really helped me feel confident to actually start my business and start making money. So I just wanted to share that because that's what this is all about. I want to help you in your web design journey, just like I was fortunate to do here with Shannon. So check out my bundle. There's a link below. And without further ado, here is Shannon. You're going to hear how a former school teacher went full-time web design in less than a year. Enjoy. Shannon, welcome on to the podcast. It's so great to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I have listened to your podcast for a long time now, so it's cool to actually be on it.
It's been really cool to see your journey so far. And we were talking before we went live here. The previous couple episodes to this are with some experts in the web design industry, but I think it's just as valuable to hear from somebody who is early in the journey. And I think you're a prime example of somebody who has come from a different industry and you've worked your butt off in web design in just over a year. And you've done a really good job at sticking with it, building a nice site, solidifying your services, and I think really, really exciting things are ahead for you. So I think it's awesome to have you on. Thank you so much for taking some time. Before we dive in here, do you want to let everybody know, first off, where you're based out of? And I know you're in a networking group now. So when somebody in that group asks you what you do, what do you tell them?
Yeah, so I am based out of Charleston, South Carolina, and my networking group spiel is a little bit longer, it's 60 seconds, but I usually start with, I design, build, and maintain beautiful websites for small businesses.
Beautiful.
So
and I think that's pretty much what your website says too, right? Something short and sweet, nice headline, very, very clear. And being in Charleston, are you working primarily with just businesses locally, or are you doing stuff abroad? I know you're doing some white label stuff too, right?
Yeah, I'm not doing anything abroad, but most of my clients have been local small businesses in Charleston, but I am doing some white label work through people that I've met through your club. And that has been in other states as well. But I think all of my clients are here in Charleston.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into it here, Shannon, because you have a really cool path and journey into web design. First question I have for you, is it wild to think about you being a web designer? Like, do you wake up sometimes and just think, I can't believe I'm designing websites?
Yeah, sometimes. I guess if I really reflect on it, because this time last school year, I started the school year as a teacher. So this school year, it's just been a whole different career, a whole different lifestyle. And yeah, I love it though.
Yeah. Well, let's take us back to beginning of 2020. So you're a school teacher. What happened that made you even before you got into web design and we got together with, my courses and stuff, what was the jettison of that career change? Like, what made you think about not being a school teacher and changing paths?
Well, I hate teaching, and it wasn't COVID. So I know the timing of it sounds like it, COVID especially has been really hard for teachers. And I just have so much respect for all the teachers who are sticking with it. But it wasn't COVID that made me decide. It was actually, so just to take it back a little further, I taught Spanish and English as a second language because just always my interests have been around language and traveling, among other things. But that was just what I had chosen to do. And so a goal that I had since high school was that I wanted to live in Spain for a while. So I taught for 4 years in Tennessee, and then I took a year off and traveled mostly in Spain while I was teaching online. And so that was before COVID. That was the 2018, 2019 school year that I took off, teaching online before everyone was. But that was it was just not a sustainable career for me personally. I didn't really enjoy teaching online. It didn't pay very well. It just was not, I knew it wasn't going to be forever for me. And what I did really want to do more regularly was travel and have a flexible schedule. So when I was traveling that year, I met a lot of other digital nomads who were traveling and working remotely. And so through conversations with them, I just knew that a lot of them were in the web development, software development space. And so that was really the first time I had even considered it.
Wow.
I just thought, why not? Why not consider something in that field? And so I just started searching that year online for different opportunities, trying to figure out what I could possibly be good at or interested in. And I kept coming back to web design. And that is really how I decided to do it. At some point there is when I found your courses. So I don't know if you,
I was curious how you stumbled across my stuff, because I think it was spring of 2020, if I recall, that you came through the courses. So I was trying to remember. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I had wondered if it was COVID related, but it just sounds like that's kind of a coincidence as far as timing goes.
So I had started looking, it did take me a little while to find your courses. I had looked into other things. I certainly wasn't thinking I would quit my teaching job so soon. I came back after that school year and I moved to West Virginia where my boyfriend lived. And I got a teaching job there for that school year. And that was the beginning of, in March is when COVID happened. And so I was still kind of searching online for other career opportunities, but I had kind of been trying to focus on, teaching my students and stuff. And so right before COVID is when I found you through your Elegant Themes blog series, how to be a web designer with Divi and WordPress. And that's how I originally found you. And I was like, this guy teaches I liked your communication style. You were just helping people start a business. I don't know. I just felt like you explained things very well. So that's how I found your courses. I went to your website and then right before, I was just looking at it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest. And I think you were just getting your course bundle finished at that time. And so I knew I needed to buy all of them because I didn't know anything about web design. So I was like, I need to learn all of the things. But then we got shut down for COVID and I had so much time. Teaching in rural West Virginia, a lot of students didn't have access to internet.
Oh,
and so,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
So it was they really decided to focus on the core subjects. And so I was teaching Spanish at that time. And so I really didn't have much to do and that's awful because so many teachers worked so hard, but I found myself with a lot of extra time. And so that's when I took the opportunity to buy your courses. Yeah. Took them all and just threw myself into it.
You may have been one of the first students who completed all the courses in that amount of time. Like, I remember you basically went ham on all the courses, all day. And it was really cool for me to see because the timing of that is wild. I've completed the bundle, which my SEO course was the final course in that bundle. In beginning of March 2020. So, and I sure as heck didn't plan that. It just kind of happened that I had that course ready to go then. So it was just in perfect time for you. So look, here's a valuable lesson too, is when you have an opportunity where you do have some time, make the best of it instead of you could have just sat on the couch and felt sorry for yourself or just wondered what to do, but you were proactive and did something, which is awesome, Shannon. I could tell you were a go-getter. I know you don't probably view yourself like this, but you are a go-getter and a doer from the get-go. So hats off to you, first of all, for taking that time and doing it, because it was really cool to see. And I was actually curious, in those early days when you started learning web design, did you think about just doing web design to be able to have something to do on the side? Or were you pretty serious about starting a business from the get-go with this?
I think at first I was thinking about doing it on the side, but I really wanted to find a job that I could eventually have as my full-time job. I don't know if I had really considered owning my own business and everything that would entail at that time. But it's definitely been a fun challenge ever, since I decided to do it. And yeah, I think I was more thinking about just freelancing, but I mean, I still am basically freelancing. But it was just, I felt like as a teacher, I knew that I would come home and most teachers bring work home. You think about how you can do things better all the time. When you really care about your students. And I knew that it was going to be really hard for me to continue to teach, but do this on the side, which I was also getting really excited about. And I knew it was going to take my attention. So that's when I decided. So at the end of that school year, I had just been building a few sites for free and learning through your courses and all of that. And then my boyfriend and I moved from West Virginia to Charleston, South Carolina that summer. And I had the choice whether I was going to, find another teaching job or just see if I could do this. And I just felt like again, I didn't want to try to do both. And I remember you advised me when I talked to you about it, that to think about what's the worst that can happen. And for me, it was, well, I'll just get a part-time job doing something that is not as time consuming as teaching. So maybe it would be like working at a coffee shop, or what I actually did end up doing was a part-time babysitting job.
Right.
And so, you just make it work if that's what you want. And I mean, I think everyone's situation is going to be different. Mine was that before I traveled, I had set this goal of paying off all my student loan debt, my car debt. So I had already taken care of that, and I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. So for me personally, it was okay to take that risk of just being like, well, if I don't make enough money, I can get a part-time job, or, that's it. Like it's no big deal. But for everyone, that's not feasible. So yeah, I totally understand the struggle there.
Well, I was curious what the risk factor looked like for you then. I do remember that, because I remember you saying, you and your boyfriend were thinking about moving to South Carolina because you want to see the beach. And of course, I was a little jealous because my wife and I want to do that one day at some point, but we're not going to leave family because they're all here in Columbus, Ohio. But one thing that was really cool about that time period, as I think back on that, is I think it was maybe an interesting opportunity for you, because you realize I could do web design anywhere, and it's not location dependent. So whereas teaching, if I guess like you were teaching online, so you were a little more used to remote work, but for the average person, that is a huge barrier to think about, the fact that you are not tied to a location with web design. Even if you do have a lot of local clients, if you move, you can get other clients from where your new location is or remotely. There's so many different avenues for it. And I know we'll talk about some white labeling that you're doing with other designers as well. But it was really cool to see that you kind of embraced Charleston, this new city, new experience. And how did you come up with, because I want to talk about how you started getting clients locally, but walk us through like when you decided to make a business, and how did you come up with your business name? Because I kind of remember some of this, but what was your mindset when you actually were like, okay, I'm going to do this? You look at the risk, worst case scenario, like you said, you'd get another job. You did some nannying on the side to help out with some costs, and obviously you didn't have all the risks that somebody with a family might have. So yeah, take us through the business setup. What did that look like for you?
I mean, I didn't want to spend too much time on it, because I knew it was something I could potentially spend weeks on, like deciding on a name and a brand and designing the website. And I did spend a decent amount of time on my website, but I just forced myself to decide. I made a list of names that I could potentially use, and I ended up going with Turia, because at the time that I decided to really look into web design was when I was living in Valencia, Spain. And there is a riverbed that the city has turned into a park that wraps around the whole city, called the Turia, which is spelled Turia, but no one's going to say Turia in the United States. So just call it Turia. But so it was meaningful to me. I lived next to this park. It's a really beautiful, peaceful space that I loved going to every day when I lived there. So
that's awesome. I didn't know what was behind the name. I should have asked that. All the times we've talked, I never asked about what was behind the name. Do you have that on your website anywhere? The meaning behind the name?
I don't. I guess I could, but
I think that would be cool, Shannon, if you had like on your about page, like what's behind the name, which, not every client is super interested in the meaning of a business, but that is really cool because it's personal. It's like you can give a little snapshot of your past and your experience with teaching. And listen, clients, just for everyone's heads up, clients love getting to know who they're working with on a deeper level. So if somebody finds out you are a teacher and you care about teaching, and like, what a great way to build some trust and likability there. So I would totally encourage you to kind of have a what's behind the name, and maybe throw a picture of you when you were traveling through Spain or something. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And kind of going back to like just deciding on like building my website and deciding on everything. I mean, well, first of all, your courses, I based everything that I started my business on from your business course, just all of your courses helped me so much with that, but especially the business course. And like, even some of the wording I took from you and then just made it my own, which you give your students permission to do that. So, but in the beginning that helped so much because I think some people spend so much time just deciding on these things and they just never get started because they think it all has to be perfect. But, I just was really grateful for like the resources that you gave in your business course for like just some pages to get you started and what should be on your website and how, how the marketing tips and things like that all helped me get my website up quickly.
Oh, that's so awesome. I remember seeing your website at first. Well, it's funny because I figured you would come back and you'd still be like wrestling with a name. And then you were like, here's my site. It's up. And I was like, holy cow, Shannon, way to go. Like you hit the nail on the head there. That's a really important point. You can just paralyze yourself in decisions and perfectionism. And the reality is it's better just to get something up and to just do it and then revise it, tweak it, kind of go from there because I think a lot of people don't even get to the point where they get started because they just kind of lock themselves and limit themselves with this analysis paralysis. So again, you did a really good job with just getting out the door and it still holds true today. Like your initial design is what you have a year later and it's a beautiful site. And I know you've done some awesome work. I think you had an interesting design approach. Like I feel like you were pretty darn good at design right from the get-go. Did you have any other background in design? Did it help when you were doing courses and teaching? Like were you doing presentations? Did you have any sort of eye for design? Because I really feel like from the get-go, I was like, wow, you're a great designer.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think, of course, I did presentations every day teaching, so that probably helps. But it was one thing that I chose because it's an interest that I have, like just any opportunity when I was teaching or just in my life to do something artistic. I took a lot of art classes as electives in college and just really enjoyed that. But I'd never even considered having any type of creative career. I don't know. It's kind of a long story, like how I ended up teaching but yeah, so that was one thing that really, I was excited about in web design was when I was looking at potential careers that it was something that combined like art and creativity and being, the graphic design kind of side, but also all these other skills. There's so much to it. There's like business and marketing and UX design development. I mean, if you are wanting a career to be challenged in, you're always going to be learning and you're never going to get bored. I think web design is a great career for that because there's just so much that you can learn.
Certainly never going to get bored. That's for sure. And I think in the case of all my courses in my bundle, as I've kind of thought about that, the goal is really to help you and other web designers around the world become well-rounded. So you feel good about your business, Divi or whatever theme you're using, you feel good about even just a little bit of coding with CSS. I know coding isn't your favorite thing, Shannon, but you got dangerous enough to where you're able to do some really cool stuff with it and fix stuff and figure stuff out. Got a little dangerous with SEO, got a little dangerous with cPanel and other things. So the goal is to be a well-rounded designer. And I think what you're probably finding out now is you can really dive into these areas in much more expertise and detail if you want to, but you don't have to. Like, I was actually curious, what is your strong suit in your business? Is it design? Is it copy? Are you like an SEO? What's some of your favorite aspects of web design, being that you've been doing it for almost a year and a half now?
Yeah, I actually do enjoy the coding. It was something completely new to me, but I loved your CSS course. That was something just really exciting to me to be able to see. I don't know how to do that. It was just way more, you made it way more accessible than I realized, and something that's very learnable. It's like a language that you can learn. So I actually enjoy the challenge of that now, but probably the design is still my favorite part.
I didn't think about that. I I didn't realize you enjoyed it as much as you did. So that's interesting. I think potentially since you are versed in different languages, I'm sure that helps with coding because it is literally a language. Like you're literally like, if you can learn Spanish and English, then I'm sure you can learn CSS in a couple different languages code wise, because it is very much the same. I don't know if you thought about any of the principles that apply, with learning different languages, if that translates to code, but that's an interesting point. I didn't really think about that, but I guarantee that helped you pick up on that.
Yeah, I think the main thing that has helped coming from like being a teacher is something I focused on, aside from the language thing with my students, was just having a growth mindset. Like anything that you want to learn, you can learn. And so I don't know, me trying to instill that in my students helps me in trying to learn anything. Like if something seems like it's just something I never thought I could do, well, I can figure it out. And that is really useful in business in general, and starting your own business is just knowing that you can figure it out and you can learn how to do anything.
Great point. I think in the club, you and I were messaging and I told you the ability to just have like figure-outiveness. If that's a term, we're calling it a term here. I'm going to trademark that. That is the most crucial thing you can have as a web designer and as an entrepreneur and a business owner, just to figure it out. Yeah. So you kind of had an early mindset with that, which is really cool. So I do want to talk about business and how you started getting your first clients. I'm sure you recognized early on, and hopefully I taught you this in the beginning, which was not only is web design a great way to have the lifestyle you want to live and have freedom, but it is fulfilling work. I mean, it comes with its hardships and its highs and lows, but you're helping businesses grow and you're helping somebody be proud of their website. Like, that feels really cool. And I'm sure when you got out of teaching, I would imagine, I don't know if you felt like you neglected students or you were, bailing on them, but hopefully web design was maybe not as equal as that, but at least somewhat fulfilling. Would you say that's true when you got going with your business?
Oh yeah, definitely. I did have a little bit of guilt, strangely, like just leaving teaching. I don't know if that's common for teachers to feel when they leave, that they're giving up on their students, but it wasn't. I mean, the more I thought about it, that's not what it was. It just wasn't the best fit for me. And I do feel fulfilled. And that's something that I really enjoy about web design. Is the fulfilling part is just helping businesses when that's like the best clients to work with are the ones that have maybe had a bad experience, or they try to do it themselves and they are frustrated and they spend hours and it still doesn't look good. And then you can deliver something that they're so excited about and they're so thankful, and just helping their business grow is just really exciting, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts of web design, is particularly once you get something done and out and they're pumped about their new website and they're excited about the work that you've done. I mean, I'm sure you had students that you helped, but I'm sure you had a lot of students where it was like, is anyone listening to me? Are they taking anything from this? Sure. So to see somebody on the other end as like a client have your work in their hands and they can spread it, to their network is so cool. So getting clients, here's the tricky part. And I remember when you joined a networking group in Charleston and you went for it. You went for, I know you stepped out of your comfort zone too. I know that sales is not your favorite aspect of the business. And I know you're kind of introverted in a lot of ways, which you came onto this show. Thank you so much. It was so funny because when I invited you, you were like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating already. But I love that you're, branching out of your shell, getting out of your comfort zone. That's at a whole nother level when you start getting clients. And tell us about where did you get your first local client? Was that through the networking group that you joined?
It was. Yeah. So when I first moved here, I did do another free site for someone that I met through a book club that I joined. So I was prepared to do that for a little while. I had, some savings. So I was like, whatever I need to do to build my portfolio, to just get my name out there, I have some time. But I joined a bunch of different networking groups when I moved here. And one in particular, there were 3 that I joined, and I've quit 2 of them because the one that I joined that has helped the most was called BNI, Business Networking International. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it. It's all over the world. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It can be very rigid. There's a lot of rules. It's kind of expensive, but it has just worked for me. So, the first meeting I had, I was just visiting that group, and it was all virtual, by the way, which was really nice for me. It was easing into it. So it was all on Zoom. We're in person now, but
so you didn't have to go to your first big networking group in person, feel like an imposter. Everyone's wearing suit and ties and they're professionals, and you're like, oh, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So it was like, it actually is really nice for some people like me who are introverts, who don't really enjoy the idea of like just wandering around the room and finding someone to talk to and like, just, I don't know, thinking of what to do with your hands. It's like Zoom took care of all of that. Like it was a nice way to ease into it. But anyway, the first meeting that I had, I met someone who asked me to go to coffee, and she had a business on the side. She was an insurance agent in the group, but she had a side hustle she made Korean dumplings, Korean mandu, and delivered them locally. And she already had a very successful side hustle doing this, but COVID had really helped her business doing like local deliveries and just, I don't know, it was just, she did really well during COVID. And so she wanted a better website and a better system. And so like from my first meeting, we started talking about that. So like that ended up being my first paying client. And it was this kind of complicated e-commerce site. So that was fun.
That's right. I forgot that was e-commerce. Yeah.
She doesn't have a ton of products or anything, but there were just very special circumstances doing local delivery. Yeah. She also had a separate page for her pop-ups that she does like and food trucks type situation. But anyway, that I knew that was going to be a good group for me to join. That client has given me so many referrals, her in particular. She is a networking queen. So she's helped me a lot. And so mostly it's been through BNI that I've had most of my clients. And then she also, and a few other people in the group have connected me to like graphic designers, logo designers, social media marketers locally that specialize in those aspects of digital marketing. And that has been a great partnership for me to have. Both of those connections we give each other work a lot, and we'll work together on projects. So that has been really helpful as well. So looking for those type of partnerships, in addition to just going to the networking meetings.
Yeah. Well, a couple of important points there. First of all, the networking groups, I think it is good that you joined a few and then decided which one you wanted to stick with, because I did the same. It's really important to try a few different groups out, because when we say networking groups, it's people. So some groups, I remember the organization I was a part of, my group was awesome. We had some really great people. I visited other chapters and they were terrible. Some were like good old boy club kind of thing. Some were just, it wasn't a good fit. I was lucky in my chapter where we had some really good, serious entrepreneurs and stuff, which was really cool. So great lesson. Do a few different groups. And I would say too, and maybe you'll back me up on this, not to judge an organization just by one group. Sometimes you do need to go around to a few different groups because it's people. See what resonates with you. I think the other important thing that you figured out, Shannon, was it's not just the people in there who are going to be your clients, but it's who they know. It's that the gal you worked with, it's her network, which is now a huge referral source for you. So that's the beauty of any professional network is you get to meet maybe 15, 20 people. Suddenly your network is instantly expanded by hundreds of people, and you have access to these people, and it's a much more warm way to go than, Shannon calling local businesses, cold calling, saying, "Hey, I'm Shannon, I'm new. Do you need a website?" Which
I did do that. Like one day I did some cold emails.
Did you? All right.
I never heard back. That was before I really did anything with the networking. And I decided I will not do that again. I felt icky. I didn't like it. It was not for me.
Yeah, if lovely Shannon can't get through with a cold email, I don't know what hope anyone has, because I just think it's a very dated approach. I mean, maybe it works if you do it in scale and you do hundreds and thousands of blasts, but yeah, networking and organic is totally the way to go. So I love to hear how that started for you. And I know you had some highs and lows in the beginning, as all business owners do, because you get a few projects. We talked before we went live, you're in seasons where you have a lot of projects and then it seems like they drag on, or you have little projects. Tell me about like when you kind of turn the corner to like, okay, this is like, I'm going to continue doing this. Cause I know you started the business, but if you didn't get any projects for a few months, it could be something where you're like, all right, am I not destined to do this? But I guess the question is like, what were some of those moments that gave you some confidence early on to stick with it?
I didn't have a lot of confidence early on. I think I just knew that, like, as far as being reinforced by the massive amounts of money I was making, like that did not happen. And it's still like, just, I'm getting to the point now where if I have a slower month, it's okay. Cause I've had a few really good months for my standards. And, but like in the beginning, I think it was just me knowing that the only option I had, because I had done so much work, I had invested in tools and your courses, like I just was not going to stop. I just knew that I needed to keep trying. And I did have, like a few months where my savings had dwindled. And that's when I ended up getting a part-time job, doing some nannying, and it's very part-time. So I'm so thankful that I didn't go out and just get like a job that had a lot of hours, because I actually only work 1 day a week for her. And it was actually just like a month later that I got tons of work. So it can change so fast, even week to week for me. I'll be feeling really stressed one week, like, I just finished these projects. I was, I don't have very many lined up, or the ones that I have, they paid months ago and they're not responding, and there's the drag on. So that can delay you finishing the project and getting paid again. You're just like, that inconsistency can be really stressful. But I just feel like the only thing I could do was just to keep going. Yeah. And then I guess the months that I did have that were really good months obviously felt awesome, and are now allowing me to not feel so stressed. If I do have a little bit of a slower month, I'm okay. And I've had, I don't know how many clients now, but because I did your maintenance plan course, every single one of them, I think every one of them is on a maintenance plan.
Oh,
so that's
good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm super glad that I knew about that from the beginning and did that, because it's really good for the client and it's good for me. They don't have to worry about their website. They don't want to have to maintain it. So I can help them with that. And it's recurring income that I know is just going to keep building. So that has given me a lot of security and confidence to just keep going.
Yeah, that's so great, Shannon. What a great little case study of that season of your life, because I remember that. I remember you expressed to me that you were a little down just because you worked your butt off, learning all the courses, going through the courses, setting up your business, had some good opportunities, and you just weren't landing that many clients in the beginning. Although I do remember one time I asked you how many proposals you sent out, and you said 1. And I was like, all right, Shannon, 1 is not enough to feel bad about yourself. You need to get 10 proposals out before you start feeling bad about yourself. So we had a little bit of, back and forth in the beginning there to help get past that point. And I do remember you saying, I think I'll take a little part-time job. And I don't remember what I said, but I assume I said, like, that's fine, do that. And then I'm glad that you still made sure you had the time to devote to web design, because then I forget if you just randomly reached out or if I checked in with you to see how things were going. And you were like, by the way, remember like the last time we spoke, I was, really kind of down and was hoping to find some clients. Well, now I'm like slammed and I don't have enough time to get all this stuff done. So it can change on a dime like that.
And I would say if you do have a part-time job and you're not, it can be hard to just not focus all the time on getting more clients. But the first few years, especially if you're coming from another career and you're just learning everything, I think it can be really nice to not be slammed, so that you feel you really have time to make every project the best that you can do, that you're learning something on every project. So like during those slower months, you can just be taking advantage of those to learn if you're not stressed about financial stuff.
That's a great
if you're
point.
able to do that, it's nice to have the time.
Yeah, that's the perfect time too to refine your systems and your processes and make sure when you do get a wave of business, which is going to happen, you can handle it and you can build sites faster than you would have, because it's almost, I mean, I know it's tricky because I know it's a very, and I remember this feeling when you're like low on projects, it's a terrible feeling. But at the same time, while that's a challenge, what's an even greater challenge sometimes is having too many projects and then just not being able to fulfill them, and then doing bad work or rushing stuff or just not getting having a good experience with your client. Like, it's almost better to, like you said, have fewer clients in the beginning and do really good work, have a really good experience from start to finish, make a client for life, get them on your hosting and maintenance, get a nice review, get some referrals, and let it grow like that. So it sounds like you learned all those lessons, pretty early on. And I'm sure, look, finances do come into play here. I don't know what the average school teacher salary is, but I'm sure when you came from that world and when you look at web design, that I taught you should start at $24.97 on average for a typical site. Did at any point were you looking at web design and thinking like, wow, I could potentially make in a few months what I made as a school teacher? Did that, early on, did that enter in and entice you to stick with it from the business perspective?
I don't think so, because
okay.
I think I saw over time how I definitely will have a lot of more opportunities financially in web design. I'm really excited about that. So yes, I guess I should say, but for the first year, I did not see, like, for me personally, I did not start my sites at $2,500 websites. So to overcome imposter syndrome for myself, I felt better about doing lower priced sites. And so that is partially why, I might have struggled, but it may have also helped me get more clients in the beginning. I don't know. But now that I'm busy, I was able to raise my prices to more of like what you've recommended and beyond for projects now. And I will see that growth. So I think for me, for the first year or so, it was just like, I had to kind of step back and realize, I'm not going to make my teacher salary this year. For me, some other people might be able to do that right off the bat, be able to be super successful. But I wanted to do a really good job on all the websites. I took a long time on all of my websites, and I didn't charge as much as you recommended. That's probably terrible advice, but that is just that's how I got through this past year. But I'm really, really excited for the future years to see how that can grow.
Yeah. And that's all right. I mean, I do recommend, I think you probably would have landed most all the clients still at a $2,500 range instead of I think you're at about $1,000 or $1,500 for some, but 15. Yeah. But that's still fine. And it's still enough to where like $1,500 for a website compared to how much work you had to have done in as teaching to get to that point. I'm sure, at least planted the seed to realize like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. And it's not from a greed perspective. It's just from a realistic, like, this is an industry where the sky's the limit. It's really, it's totally up to you, which is terrifying in some way, but also super empowering and awesome. I would love to hear, if you're open with Shannon, like, I know recently you had about a $6,000 a month. What the heck happened? How, like, that's really great. How was that? Just one of those where like all projects seemed to close and start at the same time? Was there anything special that happened then? I'm sure that was a confidence booster too, right? To be like, wow, this could be really cool.
Yeah, that was really exciting for me. I messaged you and told you about that. That was just because I had several projects end and another one begin. Maybe it was, I can't remember now exactly what happened, but it was just a good month of finishing things and starting another one. And I have recently raised my prices and been really excited to see that, yes, I do still get clients after I've raised my prices.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
Definitely.
awesome. Yeah, great for you. That's so cool. I remember when you let me know about that, I was pumped because it's those moments that do make up for those low periods and those bummer months or those bummer weeks where you're just kind of down on yourself, you're wanting clients, and then when something good happens, I think it's really important to, number one, celebrate that, and then also reflect on that and just remember the impact you're making and remember those good moments, because those do tend to it's easy to look past those if you're worried about finances or you're stuck on a project or something. Negatives always outweigh positives, it seems like. So I think being intentional, about that to help your confidence. I don't know if you intentionally did that, but I've definitely seen you, be very sturdy through this whole first year of your business, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say that so that if someone is, like thinking they just started your courses or thinking about switching, just to know that there may be months where, I don't know, and that might be bad advice from you, because I know you encourage people to start charging more. But for me, it was just like I had to struggle for a while before I got to that point. And so just be prepared for that. Maybe if you're not the best at sales, and if you do want to start your prices and to get more clients, then just being prepared to work hard and not make a whole lot for a little while before things start to compound with maintenance plans and getting more clients. So being able to raise your rates, that's how it worked for me. And so I don't know, sometimes I just felt like listening to your podcast, I heard a lot of people that did get me really excited. They made $100,000 in their first year. I think you did a podcast episode about that. And it can be a little disappointing when you don't even come close to that, but just to not let that discourage you, because that doesn't mean that you won't have that year next year or in a few years.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. And it is kind of tricky. And it's one reason I wanted to have you on, because you are early in the journey. And I look back at a lot of the episodes I've done, and there are a lot of top tier experts and folks who are, doing really well in and out of different areas of web design. But the reality is, even if you're making 20, 30 grand, that's still awesome. That's a great foundation to take to the next level. It's a heck of a lot more than you'd be making working fast food or, and even a lot of industries. Did you listen to the episode with Lee Blue from Double Stack recently?
I don't think I've heard that one yet.
So it was about it was about selling your strategy and the results over just commodity type services. But the reason I mentioned that is because he was taking his daughter to colleges, to visit colleges. And I guess Virginia Tech famously says their average earning of a student is $60,000, which for 4 years of higher ed college education, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for $60K a year, that just sounds insane to me. You could 100% make that in web design if you really work hard within a couple years, maybe under a year. If you have the systems in place and if you do your pricing and you love sales, whatever. But I say all that to say, the sky is the limit. So it's really cool to see you, even, on the lower end, still stick with it and kind of have those little confidence boosters that have helped put you to this point, because I think where you're at now is really interesting, Shannon. I think you're on the cusp of really taking this to the next level. I actually wanted to ask you about sales. Have you, do you like sales more now? Have you learned any sales strategies that have helped you not dread sales? I mean, it seems like you're more confident in what you provide. Any thoughts on sales now that you've been doing it for over a year?
I think just getting more comfortable with, because I didn't realize how many discovery calls, the sales type calls that I would be making. And just getting more, it just took me time to get comfortable with those and being able to just help people and talk about, learn about their business. I think actually being a really good listener and just being able to really understand what they're saying that they need and being able to offer solutions to that is what they really want, instead of just a website. So I don't know. I've listened to a lot of your different podcast episodes about people who just are helping people, selling people. I can't remember what episode or maybe something else.
I think I've talked about it quite a bit. Yeah, it really is. It's
educating and
educating, helping people. That's the best sale. It really it beats being that sweaty used car salesman, because nobody wants to be that. It feels desperate. It feels icky, like the cold calling thing you did. And if you just share what you know and you genuinely want to help, and I know you do, like I know you have a care for your work and for your clients, and I'm sure that comes across in the networking group and any other avenues you're doing. So yeah, I was hoping for you that early on you would kind of have that mindset, because I know how daunting sales can be. But if you just flip the script and just serve and share, that really that's the key to it. So it sounds like you're doing that. How are you doing that practically? Are you presenting in your networking group at all? Are you doing like consults or meetings with leads? How are you sharing your expertise with potential clients?
I do our networking group every week. We do a quick 1-minute presentation, just explaining our business. And then we rotate. Everyone does a 10-minute presentation. So I do that like once every 3 months, just like going into more detail about my business and what I can offer. But mostly sales for me has just been when I get a referral or when I get a contact form submission from Google or wherever, I just schedule a call and we'll just talk to them and learn about what they need and learn about their business and just try to get as much information as possible. And then I've just been going through like a series of questions in the call. And I know it can be helpful to like weed those calls out like you teach in your course. I still do that sometimes by like kind of sending them a pricing page so that they know like the ballpark of what my services cost, and then they can schedule a call after that. But sometimes if I know, like if it was a referral from the group, I will just go ahead and still have a call with them. And then if I can help with, even if they don't end up going with me, I just try to come at it from like a perspective of I can help them, just kind of seeing what they need and maybe help them not go to explain why Fiverr or like cheap website might not be the best option if that's what they're wanting. And just being able to focus on helping them find the right solution. And at the end of that call, I'm usually able to give them a ballpark so that they know the general pricing. And then if that sounds good to them, I'll send them a quote that was more specific. And then, the quote with the contract and invoice and everything.
That's great. Yeah. That's the way to go. Yeah. Really proud of you for sticking to that and having that type of mindset. I'm curious, what is the biggest difference between Shannon? We're recording this at the end of August, 2021. So what's the biggest difference between you from a business perspective from Shannon in August 2021 from August 2020?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I do have more confidence in that I am like really hardworking and strong, and I will figure it out if, through like the times where I was really stressed and things were not going so well, just pushing through that and seeing what I was able to do just because I kept going and I kept trying and I kept doing things that were not comfortable for me, like networking and just, all the things that I'm not really super comfortable with. I think on the other side of that, you just feel really proud and, it gives you more confidence to keep doing harder things in the future. And that you're going to succeed if you just keep going.
That's great. Wow. What a nice little motivational snippet there. That's awesome. How did practically, when you were in some of those low points and those stressful times, what did you do personally to get through that? Did you just shut things off and go for a walk? Did you, get out? I know you're living by the beach, so that's not the luxury that everyone has, unfortunately. Like, what did you do to help change your mental state and get out of some of those, low points?
Yeah, I had a few days that I particularly remember, just like the low points where I would cry and just like let myself feel frustrated and feel that I would talk to my boyfriend who I live with and just be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not, maybe this was a terrible idea. And really talking to someone that you trust, that sees you and sees the hard work that you've done and the success that you have had is really helpful. Like he is always reminding me whenever I've had moments like that. Like, hey, like a lot of people will say you don't even make a profit in your first year and you have made a profit, or like look at this awesome project that you've already done in such a short amount of time, or just having someone to remind you of the things that you just sometimes forget because you're focused on what it could be. That's really helpful. And yeah, just of course, going to the beach if you can. It's really nice.
That's awesome. Hey, it's great that you have a support system like that. Yeah. And hats off to your boyfriend for that support, because that's tricky. Like my wife has done that for me sometimes in low points where she's sometimes the voice of reason. And it is easy to get down on yourself. Often we're our own worst enemies in that regard. And I think it's natural as business owners and as entrepreneurs, you do kind of have to keep an eye on the worst case scenario kind of stuff, and you want to limit that. And inevitably you're excited about some stuff and you're worried about some stuff at the same time. But to have, some support system and some tools and tactics to get out of those points are really good. And I think what you did there with just letting yourself cry it out, I think that's totally fine. Like for everybody, like if you feel like you're a failure because you want to have a good cry when things aren't going well, I'm here to say that is 100% okay. Sometimes it's good to feel it and then move past it, move on, and just change your mental state and stuff. So it sounds like I would have advised you to do the exact same thing. So I'm really glad that you had that in place. And it sounds like maybe you built some of that muscle to handle those type of situations. Now I know I have in my journey, those low points, as much as they suck when you're in them, those end up being like the best teaching moments because you learn from it. And like when you start feeling like that again, I kind of know, all right, I'm going to feel like this for a little bit and then I'll bounce back. It's even interesting. I don't know if we talked about this in the club, but I always have a pretty big low, like a drop once I launch a course. And you would think it'd be the other way around. You'd think I'd be like jazzed that a course is out there and I'm pumped, but there's something weird about, and I don't know if maybe you've experienced this with projects, but and I'm not like you're, super depressed or something, but there is an odd, like low feeling sometimes when your creation is done and out. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is, but I definitely feel that with creating courses, because at the first couple courses, I was like, what's wrong with me? I'm making money off this thing that I've been working so hard at. Why do I feel weird? And then now I just realize it's just, maybe I'm sure it's been documented somewhere or researched where once you create something and you get it out, maybe it's like you're done with it and that part leaves you. I don't know what's behind that, but I definitely felt that. Did you ever feel anything like that, like with projects or anything?
That's funny. It almost sounds like postpartum depression.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
But like, yeah, just, I feel it's like a very vulnerable time whenever you've created something and you're kind of waiting for, or especially for me, it's like when I'm finished and I'm waiting for feedback from the client, that is a nerve-wracking time for me. Yeah. Are they gonna, love it or be kind of like okay with it or hate it? I don't know. It's just, you never know how people are going to react. So, I would say that I feel, I don't know if I feel it after the site is completely done. I think I might just be really relieved. But for me, it's mostly like when I'm waiting to hear how the client will react. That's like the hardest, most vulnerable time for me.
Yeah. I think we all feel that. Yeah, it is a little bit different with projects. I didn't feel quite that way with web design projects as I did, doing courses and stuff. So yeah, it is kind of interesting. It's like a post-course partum depression. So yeah, we may have coined another term here. I'm very curious about this, Shannon. What does your family think about this? Like, did you have support from parents and relatives? Because that can be really tricky when you go full time. I know you moved to, like, you had I know you were already traveling before that, so it may have been a little bit different. But as much as you're open to sharing, like, what's that like? Because I'm always fascinated with how families sometimes react to a career path change and what you're up to now. What did that look like?
Yeah, my parents have always been pretty quietly supportive whenever I choose to see it like that anyway. They really didn't say a whole lot. They just kind of listen and they are like, all right. I honestly can't remember what they said, probably because they didn't say very much. But the fact that they didn't discourage me, I think the reason for that is because I have even before I took the year off when I was a teacher during the summers, I would travel alone pretty frequently just because I wanted to go on these long trips. No one else had the time. So I would just go by myself. And they were always like, my dad especially would voice that he wasn't comfortable with it, that he didn't think it was a good idea, but I always made it happen. I was always responsible. I think just seeing all the things in the past that I've been responsible with, that I have been independent, self-sufficient. I think at this point they were like, well, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
So they really didn't say much, but they're excited. My mom might be slightly disappointed because she's a teacher, and my sister also used to be a teacher and she quit to do something else. So, but she doesn't say it if she is.
I mean, they have to be like, wow, Shannon, you get to work where and when you want. And, you could travel if you wanted and still, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be points where they're going to be like, wow, that's pretty dang cool. So
yeah,
oh, go ahead. Sorry,
I was just going to say that so far it has been, very focused on Charleston because of COVID and just different things. I mean, things are kind of opening up, but getting hard at the same time again for traveling. So I just have been taking advantage of the local, really throwing myself into the local community. But in the future, I'm hoping to travel and work. That was really one of my main goals for switching careers. So hopefully I'll get to do that soon.
Well, you're laying the foundation, and your journey so far is really, it sounds like it's kind of put you in a place to handle that, like with how independent you were and traveling. I'm sure that helped you, learn quickly and push through that the first few months and everything. So that's really cool. And I know you're doing white labeling stuff as well, meaning you're working with other web designers periodically. Was that mostly through my club? I know I introduced you to a few folks. Like, how did you go about white labeling? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, that has been really helpful just to have something else consistent. And I've done it with 3 different people, and all of them I've met through, the first I met through you, and the other 2 through your club, and who just reached out to me in the club. But that has been awesome. I mean, you have to find a good, relationship with someone that you guys work well together, but it's been really helpful. I've enjoyed it. I like having both. I like being able to have my own clients and help out, and just to have something else that is consistent, that somebody else is doing the sales, they're doing the part that I don't really like, and I do kind of just get to focus on design.
Yeah, it is interesting that you like the operator point, part of things, and a lot in the business with designing the websites and everything, which is cool. And I know, like I said, you're getting more and more confident with sales. I know I see your cat wanting to get on the show, see the parts there, but hey, everyone's welcome on the Josh Hall Web Design Show. So, well, let's wrap this up, Shannon. This has been so great. Your points have been really cool. I was curious, because I have one final question, but I am curious. What have you learned about yourself in this past year? If you could give yourself an analysis, like, are you proud of yourself for sticking through those first few months? Like, what have you learned about yourself as the first year as a business owner?
Yeah, I think I am just proud of myself. I think that I have learned about myself that I will just keep going when it's hard, and that you really have to. You don't have if you want to do well, that's the only choice that you have. And that, if you keep going, then you will eventually get what you want. So I think that just knowing that about myself, that I can be determined and persistent, and just overcome the struggles that maybe I have with being introverted or things like that. And also the strength in introversion, like the strength that can bring to business. There's a book called Quiet that I really recommend for anyone else who just isn't sure how that will play into being, your work environment, or being a business owner. You can really bring some valuable aspects of your personality to your business, just being a really good listener and being empathetic and things like that. So
that's great advice. I'll make sure we link that in the show notes. I want to check that out. I think I have heard of that, particularly from folks who are a bit of a, not the typical like loud type A, super charismatic type of personality. that, you don't want to go into a networking group and be like, all right, how many hands can I shake this morning? So I think that's great that there really is a whole different approach you can take, which is awesome. And let's be honest too, sometimes I think now more than ever, a lot of clients would prefer that. They want somebody who just is going to listen and do the work rather than somebody who's going to be the quote unquote perfect salesman. So
right.
Wow, that really, really valuable point. Well, Shannon, this has been awesome. Where would you like everyone to go to check you out? Do you want them to go to your website, like you on Instagram or something? Where would you like everyone to head to?
I haven't really done business accounts on social media very well.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
Probably just my website, tariawebdesign.com. You can email me and submit a contact form or anything like that to contact me.
Awesome. Yeah, of course, we'll have that link in the show notes so everyone can see your beautiful work. All right, last question. Okay, so Shannon, August 2022. Where do you want to be in 1 year?
I want to be working less hours and I want to be more just having certain income goals. I don't know if I want to say like the exact numbers, but just being more relaxed so that I can work less and just have a better pace. That is my goal. I just want to have a relaxed life. I want to go surfing on Fridays maybe and not work on Friday. That would be awesome.
Good for you. You totally can do that. And here's the good news, Shannon. So phase 1 was learning. And I'm actually curious. I meant to ask this earlier. When you decided to go through my course bundle for all the courses, what made you want to invest in yourself? Did you realize, and did I convince you that you got to go through, some courses to fast track your journey instead of taking 10 years? What made you want to invest in yourself for that first phase?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I would have had no idea. It almost felt like a degree on a smaller scale that I could get, I wasn't sure if I needed to go back to school or I just had no idea what the next steps would be in terms of starting a new career in web design. So it just for sure fast tracking and giving me all the foundations in every aspect of having a web design business. For sure. Just fast tracking that and learning from someone who has been successful and it's like you have proven processes and already been through the hard stuff and kind of came out the other side. So that has been so helpful.
That's awesome. Well, I was curious about what made you, want to do that, because some people just want to take the Googling route and the life experience route, which you can, but as you know, it's extremely costly in every aspect and it can take years. Whereas you learned for a handful of months and you came out of the gate flying, and you're only a year into your business and it's going well. You have plenty more you want to get to, but that's not too shabby for 1 year. Yeah. If you'd have done it yourself, you probably still would have been trying to figure out what CSS is a year and a half down the road. So super proud of you for doing that. And what I was going to say was phase 1 was learning. Phase 2, which is the hardest, is getting started and implementing. So you're past the worst of it, which is really, really cool. You got a foundation. This next phase, this next year, I'm super excited because now you can refine your processes, scale up on your sales and everything, figure out, first of all, raise your rates. So here's the next challenge, raise your rates again, Shannon, time to raise them, refine all that stuff. And then you can start cutting back on your time. And as you build faster, you could start off with just clearing half a day on Fridays right now and just getting more done in the morning and go surfing or whatever you want to do. So I'm really, really excited for you because now you're at a really exciting part. You're still early in the journey, so there's still a lot of work to be done, but you're definitely, this next year, I think you'll find is probably going to be the most satisfying and exciting because you don't have to learn as much. You're building some confidence and now you can work on you and refine your business and control your time. So I hope you're excited. I'm definitely pumped for you.
I am. Thank you. You're always good at reminding and getting me excited and encouraging me for the next step.
Awesome. Well, that's what I'm here for. And everybody listening, you can be the next Shannon. That's why I have my courses and my web design club. And, it's really honestly, Shannon, for me, it's been really cool to see you because I don't always see everyone's journey from start to finish. And I'm not finished, but a lot of people just tend to disappear. You actually intentionally reached out to me quite a few times, which helped me keep track of where you were until I started the club. And of course, we had Facebook groups for a lot of the courses before we had my student center. But I appreciate you using those resources to keep me informed, because this is why I do this. Like, to see your journey in this first year and a half is like the coolest thing for me. Like the feeling you get of finishing a website and being fulfilled, this is the kind of thing that fills me up. So likewise, thank you for keeping me posted and for sticking with it, because you are definitely a really, I think you're a great example of somebody who's doing it. Love what you're up to, Shannon. Super excited for you. Thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, talk soon.
All right, thanks.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.